Welcome back to the Sales Genius Podcast and War Games Group. I'm your host, Joe Ingram. Today, we are diving into the world of business systems with Ernesto Mandowsky, the founder of the $1 Million Machine. Right there tells you enough, right? We need to pay attention. Ernesto is dedicated to helping service providers design efficient systems to boost revenue, retention, profit, and overall peace of mind. With a mission to democratize access to business operation resources, Ernesto shares his knowledge on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn. So we want to connect with him wherever we can. But get ready to learn how to transform your business operations into a seamless revenue generating machine. Let's kick it off.
Welcome to War Games, hosted by the sales genius Joe Ingram. If you're looking to win the sales battle, then you have joined the right team. In the War Games Group, we devise strategies for sales, marketing, branding, mindset, and attitude. We enlist the assistance from the most successful producers across all industries. We then share their knowledge and techniques with you. Our single goal is to get you ready for your next sales opportunity. When it comes to crossing the minefield of sales, step in the footprints of those that have crossed before you. Now, prepare yourself for boot camp and beyond. It's time for the War Games to begin.
All right, everybody, let me go ahead and bring some VIPs on the screen. JR is with us. Ooh, vivid. Look at the detail on that camera. Yes. Okay, we got Bob. We're going to call him blurry for today.
Is it blurry?
It'll refocus itself. Yeah, you're completely blurry. Well, compared to JR, all of us are blurry, but it is that way. So, guys, let me bring up on the stage Ernesto because he's got some good stuff to share with us. Ernesto, welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast and the War Games Group. So War Games Group's what we call our Facebook group where we get in there and get dirty. It's all entrepreneurs, everybody that wants to. I always say they need to go and, kill to eat. So we want to do that. So your $1 Million Machine sounds exciting for all of us here, right? And for those of you that are listening, scrolling across the bottom of the screen is the $1milliondollarmachine.com, which is where you want to go so you can connect with Ernesto and see what you can unlock with the $1 Million Machine. Ernesto, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make you larger than the rest of us just because that's how you roll. So
thank you, Joe.
Welcome.
And thank you. And I was like, as I was watching the intro and just thinking about this idea of war games, this community that you have put together, these entrepreneurs, I was just thinking, every day is like a war. Every day we're going to battle. We are taking our shots. We're taking massive action. We can take massive action. We have to take the action of entire armies of people. We literally have 6 different people in our head that are taking action: the storyteller, the growth person, the customer experience person, the product person, the finance person, the operator. Like, there's all these people that are taking massive action. And if you don't have that attitude of that you're doing a war, that you're taking massive action, you're not going to realize the full potential. You're not going to realize that the full potential of your business.
And that's what happened with War Games was I said, we all go into the mindset of, I got to fight the customer for their wallet. And so I said, that was the war, was I got to get their money with my product and go back. And I was like, let's not do that. And then I said, do I really want to go try and change everyone's thought process to doing that? Or do I just want to say, if this is the belief structure, I completely understand. Come inside and let's teach you the strategies. Right. And what wins the war? It's going to be the person that can implement the most robust strategies that are out there. And so that's why Ernesto, you're here. Was Ernesto, when we were initially talking, he was like, seriously, January is the next time you have an opening for the show? And I was like, I'm sorry, it's kind of popular. And so then all of a sudden it was like, boom, hey, so-and-so can't make it. I'm like, I know who to reach out to. And I was like, I know it's a Monday prior to Wednesday, Ernesto, how about it? He's like, let's do it. Put it on the books. Let's rock and roll. So
let's
thanks
do
for
it.
taking action.
Of course, when the universe gives you an opportunity and you're available, why not?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely.
I want to touch on what you said about how, this is a war with the customer. And I think that is the mentality that maybe many entrepreneurs come in. It's an us versus them game. Really, and not to go too deep here. I don't know the level of woo-woo on this podcast, but like war we're fighting is the war with ourselves. It's the war with ourselves. It's the amount of ambition that we want to bring into our life. When we compare that to the reality that's currently present, and when we see that gap, we start to self-sabotage, and that is manifest inside of our sales conversations. We start to persecute ourselves or persecute the client because they're not responding to our proposal email that we send within 24 hours. And so then we then say, they don't care, and we stop responding. But yeah, it's just some BS story that we create. I think.
Sorry, I was agreeing with you, but muted when I did it.
That's fine.
I agree. Wait, I can't hear myself. Yes. So perfect.
I think when it comes to building a machine, or what makes a high-performing sales team, or why it's so beneficial to bring in like a sales leader or a sales manager, is that these managers, these experienced people, help you shape or reshape the narrative of what could be happening, and help you really maximize the opportunities that are presently available to you. It's not just that the customer didn't respond to you, or that they didn't like this price. There are 10 other options that are available. It just takes that experience to see that, to present that.
Correct. And a lot of times you don't know what you're competing against, right? You don't know what it is. You can go find your competitors, but I will tell you that right now, if I was going to go ahead and say, who's the competition for automotive sales training, you guys may be able to come up with a couple people, but I can come up with 10 or 11 that I believe. And if you name someone I don't know, I didn't even realize they were competition. Right?
Yeah.
So you can just attempt to say, I know everybody who's out there, but it's not possible. And so you can't even know exactly who your competitor is.
Yeah, you can't. And if, part of what the work that I'm doing with the $1 Million Machine is, it doesn't matter what other automotive training companies are out there, because if you have it all together and you deliver service that is 5-star, who cares about the competition? The customer's just going to love you and tell everyone about you and who you are and the value you provided. So, you could notice that there's competition, or notice what they're doing and take it as inspiration. Going back to that idea of this is a war with yourself. This is a game of self-improvement, and manifesting that through your businesses and through your systems. That's where anyone can shine in whatever category, as long as they're delivering at a level of excellence.
Okay. So let me flip back onto you. So the $1 Million Machine, explain to me what you went through to say, this is what I have to build. I mean, kudos to you, man. The name is spot on, right? To say, I mean, it tells you what we're going to do the whole way, just from the definition. So what got you to the point of saying, I'm going to assume we got a lot of hard work. We got a lot of stuff that went into building, the $1,000 machine, right? Or the $10,000 machine, all the way up until you go, hey, guess what I got now? The $1 Million Machine. And now you're making it easier for other people. So give me a little bit of the history of how you got up to that point.
Yeah. So 15 years ago, I wanted to get into the restaurant industry. And my parents said I was a little crazy for doing that. Regardless of what they said, I said, you know what? Not only am I going to go into the restaurant industry, but I'm going to bring systems engineering and technology into this industry. An industry before Uber, before Toast, before all the computers that everyone is seeing nowadays. It was a while ago. Everyone not only thought I was crazy for restaurants, but restaurants and tech, they're like, you're nuts. Nevertheless, I did it anyways. I spent a lot of time working in restaurants, in kitchens, in bakeries, doing recipes, menu plating, programming points of sale, programming all these dots inside of a business. And I realized that a restaurant is just like a small business. It's kind of a clusterfuck. I'm sorry. I don't know if we curse on the podcast, but it's a clusterfuck of people, of tools, of broken processes. It's a little all over the place.
It's bullshit, but we do it. Yeah.
And I said, no one taught me anything, and I love teaching people. And so I sought out to write a book that would teach the future restaurant analysts about how I did what I did. And after I published my book in 2020, it was called Newbie. I said, I'm going to start a business that's dedicated to sharing operational best practices with the world. And at the beginning of that business, it used to be called CPD Advisors. It had a very, it was a cute story, but it took too long to get to the punchline. And the $1 Million Machine actually is a new name. I actually gave a workshop in December of just last year, 6 months ago. And it was in April of this year that I decided to scrap the old name. And what I do for people is help them build $1 million machines.
Bravo. That's, again, CPD sounds like I could catch it. So I don't want that. Yeah. But so give me, okay, without giving away the farm and taking away from everything, right? So based on your experience and then taking the processes and the structure and stuff, and I'm a very process guy, so I love it. But what are the top level key elements that contribute to improving your revenue, retention, and profit while still giving someone like the business owners here on the screen, right, or those listening, the peace of mind, right? Because that always seems to be the part we all miss.
The recurring trend. So I think when you're feeling clear, you feel at peace. And so feeling clear starts with understanding how do you do what you do. So if you're an automotive trainer, how do you actually deliver that workshop for clients? Everything that you do from the point that the customer says yes on the phone or on the call to the point where you're sending the thanks for your final payment email, please submit a testimonial, everything in between, there's probably a 97-step checklist of actions, of activities, of internal communications, things that are happening. And so when you document that customer journey and you start to build some systems around delivering that customer journey, you now have the confidence, whether it's one customer or 50 customers, you're at peace because you know the steps that are happening. And you know that that person is going to get that Big Mac the same way every time because you have the recipe nailed down and you have the systems that are delivering those messages consistently and you have the feedback forms that are collected. Everything, it becomes a routine, a predictable routine once the customer comes into the door. So that's the first step. Once you have that customer journey drilled down, you're feeling good. The second step of the 5 is that you have an acquisition process. You have a way to bring in new customers. And that's where you set up your relationships with your strategic referral partners, maybe your online channels, maybe your Instagram, maybe podcasting. set up all the different ways through which you're going to bring in new customers. Because it doesn't matter if it's 5 or if it's 50, you have the process already dialed in.
Right. So it's just throw them in the hopper and let the process funnel it.
Throw them in the hopper and let the process take care of the customer.
And I've never worked on a farm, but I use hopper a lot in my life for some reason. So if we were Russell Brunson, we would say at the top of the funnel, yes, that comes in. But hopper is just such a fun word to say. So
instead of the potato cannon, off it goes.
Exactly.
So once you have your customer journey map, you have your acquisition strategy put together. Now you're starting to get some traction. You're starting to bring in consistent clients each month. They're being served really well. And because they're being served really well, they're leaving testimonials, they're giving referrals, more customers are coming in. And now this machine is starting to hum. At some point, the machine breaks down. There's too much volume going through that machine. Right. And so maybe you need a second machine, or you need to start to optimize that. So the third part of this clarity creation process is understanding, how are you staying organized throughout all of this? What is your weekly planning process like? What is your monthly planning process like? What are you looking throughout the business as the days pass, as the weeks pass, as the months pass? Sometimes it's a weekly status meeting at the end of the month. We typically like to look at financials so that we see like how cash is moving in and out of the business. And at the end of the quarter, you want to look at your priorities, at your goals, and see like, did we meet these? Like, what are the next quarter's priorities? So it's really asking the question, how are we staying organized throughout all of this chaos?
Okay.
I have a question, Ernesto. When you're doing that analysis, are you, some of the metrics that you're looking at, obviously dollars in, things like that, but are you looking, if you're in an old school format, which many of our viewers are, including me to a certain degree, but Joe's dragging and streaming, is it also with hours you're putting on the phone, attempts, that type of stuff also? That's very much in the metric, in the balance?
It's all activity tracking.
Okay.
It's activity tracking that you're looking. I mean, it depends. Some people want to look at it weekly. Some people want to look at things monthly. I think it varies from business to business, but definitely hours on the phone, outreaches, direct messages or emails sent to prospects to set up those calls. You want to look at all of these metrics, but I think you look at different levels of the business. Like, you're not going to look at phone calls made this quarter at the end of the quarter. You're not going to look at that once every 12 weeks. You look at that every week because you want to make sure that the team is performing at a high level week in, week out. And if someone's dipping, you kind of like jump in there and see like what's happening. The same token, unless it's such a cash intensive business, you're probably not looking at the financials every single day. In a restaurant, you are looking at daily cash balances, but maybe in a wealth advisory firm where maybe you're collecting fees on a monthly basis, you could look at your financials once a month as a business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm going to throw in a question because, again, I know I always say I don't want to do an interview style, but I'm greedy. Dan, welcome. I am greedy for getting the information. And I know a lot of the people that are on here. Just so everybody understands, so I'm looking at the numbers, and if I bounce across all of the different social media platforms, we have people listening, but Facebook put on their little rules that you can't stream to certain places. So once you share it to where everybody's at, you can't see what's happening on the share. Because I look in the corner and I'm like, why does it show 0? And I'm like, but I got text messages, I got DMs, there's things popping up on the other screen, and they're going, okay, what about this? What about this?
Bring them in, bring them in.
Yeah, and normally in StreamYard, it pops up over here on the right, and I can just put it up there instead of doing it. But so one of the things that came in was an individual asked, what about those of us that are not set up for systems and tend to self-sabotage if they have to do the same thing repeatedly? Right. And I'll say, like,
So
ADD person goes, oh my goodness, do the same thing again? No, I don't want to do it. Right. I'm one of the ones that can hyper focus, build a process and let it go. But I know a lot of people that I work with that cannot, right? They'll throw a wrench in the plan just so they have something to do because it got too
totally.
quiet.
Yeah, that happened. Restaurant owners always wanted to just get involved in operations and really screw things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think what the question people can ask themselves is, hey, what is the life do you want to live? Do you want to, generate $500,000 in net income from your business, or, whatever the number is? And then ask themselves, the second question is, do I have to be the person to set up the system? We all have a zone of genius that we can rest in. You, Joe, you're an automotive trainer. JR, he provides wealth management solutions. JR doesn't need to be a Salesforce specialist. You, Joe, don't need to be a financial guru doing your own QuickBooks. You hire people for that. The point that the CEO, chief executive, I think of them as chief expansion officers. Like their whole focus is how do you expand the business. It doesn't need to be them themselves building the system, but they need to make sure that it gets done, because that is the thing that will expand the business and create more job opportunities and serve more clients and make a bigger impact in the world.
All right. Kimberly says, what, and if you're the control freak, how do you get yourself to let it go?
Well, just ask yourself, what is holding on to it, keeping you from?
Ooh, I like that. I like that. All right. So I'm looking at, we have to define our process. I'm just going to summarize as we're in here, right? So we got to define our process so that customer journey is mapped out, right? And put all the steps in it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That is there. And then we're going to see how do we get the steps, and then what systems can we put in place to get all of that stuff done as quickly and easily without impacting, hopefully, myself in the process, right? Then we have the acquisition one, which is how do I fill the hopper? What are we actually going out and doing? And then on the third step, I'm saying, let's go back and on the frequency necessary for your success, stop and check what's happening. So you're going to have to stop and say, what is it that my acquisition team is doing? What is it that's going in? And your acquisition team may be an AI robot. It may be, an outsourced company that's
Sales
designed
team.
to get you leads. Yep. And to go through, but is it doing it? One of the things to look at too is when you go map your customer journey, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ernesto, but if you got to map out your journey, then we want to stop and say, what software applications can we obtain, right? And I would look and say, for me, I'm the guy who goes, let's go find the lifetime value one instead of the monthly subscription one, that I can go buy that alternative. So I can go, great, cha-ching, done, paid once, and I can get the value all the way across. But you may have to buy 5-6 different pieces to do it. If Ken Walls was here, he would tell us, go high level has it all. But
nothing has it all. Nothing has it all.
Nothing has it all. Exactly. I have the whole join builder all system. And it's like, okay, great. But again, does it have everything you need? No, you're going to have to go out and do something and to go through. But don't get caught in the trap of software saves your business, because it's going to be based on the systems and procedures, right? As you've so eloquently said to us, that's exactly what we need to worry about, is getting that process, procedure, and put it in place. Because I would much rather have sanity and money than be the person who has to put out every fire.
Correct.
And I think that's the problem with our chief expansion officers, is they love the firefight.
They love, because that's the story of entrepreneurship. That's the story society loves to tell, that it has to be this chaotic, overwhelming journey, because you are wearing, it's all true. Like, it's all true that you are wearing 8 hats and you are constantly flipping every single day, different hats and different fires. But it doesn't have to be you and only you dealing with everything.
Right. And again, I think that's going to be a big thing. Like, Ernesto, how does one person go, I have to be able to let it go, right? And I'm not this person, but I know several of the people that are commenting keep saying that. They're like, how do we get to the point of trusting someone to do it? Does $1 Million Machine lay out that this is how you're going to build out a SOP, right? And this is how you're going to put this together? Or is it more top level of saying this is what you got to do?
Well, what we do, our core value, coming from hospitality, is 5-star service. And as a training company, we train people in the thinking of our processes, of our 6-pillar system, which is our framework it's the blueprint that we set up inside every organization. But it's not just some PDF that you watch on some webinar and you get a PDF handbook to fill out with your pen and paper. No, this is actually a business system template powered through a software that's called Notion, which is just like Asana or
Notion.
Trello.
Yep.
Notion's amazing. I am a self-proclaimed Notion sorcerer.
Nice.
But it's not about Notion. The point here is that when the person is ready to let go, the first thing is be ready to do it, and then finding the person who will take you on that journey and empower you to do it for them. Because the last thing that we want is to create this unhealthy dependency where you have this consultant that like keeps you attached to their service because they don't teach you how to do what they do.
Right.
But we break everything down. We break just like a Michelin-starred meal. Like, we break down the experience of helping people like uncover what are my priorities. Okay, what are my goals? Let's write them down in Notion. Okay, now who are the people that can help me create these priorities? That's your relationship management side of things. Okay, now what's the work that needs to happen? That's the project. It's all the tasks that need to happen on the schedule, on the timeline. Notion enables you to like create these connections between these 3 spaces. And then you have promotion, which is the storytelling, playbooks, which are the SOPs, the processes, and then planning, which is the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly cycles that I was mentioning earlier, that allow you to look at all of these parts of your business in one place instead of looking at 7 different tools to understand what's happening.
Perfect. So again, for those of you that are the wing it and go make it happen entrepreneur, everything he said sound completely into a different language, but it is literally going to be what saves your sanity. And I believe we're all in it to save our own sanity, because I will tell you from now I train all different industries, but when it comes to the automotive industry, what I watch is when things get tough, right, and scale down, everybody becomes a trainer. Okay. And they're all like, I'm a trainer. And they're out there trying to leverage every relationship they have so they can go into some place to get a check by training the people that are there. Okay. And then what happens is when the business starts to pick back up, right, everybody's LinkedIn or Facebook post says, I just took a job as the internet director at this dealership. I just did this and just did this. And I laugh and I'm like, if you were that successful in automotive, you wouldn't have felt the squeeze. Right. And then if you were that good at training, you wouldn't feel the need to come back in to the industry, right, to get a job. And so, and I look at that and I always wonder what business owners are looking at when they stop and go, hey, this person is in and out based on the market conditions, not based on skill set. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're saying will help those individuals that, and what I'm listening to on this is that It's because those guys that are good inside the market when everything's going well, they jump out to start their business and they do nothing about what you just taught. They do absolutely nothing. And that's when I look and go, where's Ernesto? He could have saved a whole bunch of people from having to go back into an industry because you didn't know how to define your clarity, right? Get your process definition, get your acquisition down, and do all the planning because you didn't do this. And again, it's totally trivializing what he just said by breaking it down so simply, right? There's so much that goes into each one of those steps, and that's why you would need the $1 million machine to get yourself there.
Thank you, Joe. And yeah, people didn't know because the $1 Million Machine, it was masked behind this CPD advisor's name that no one knew what the hell that was. But anyways.
It's like JRA Wealth Advisors, that kind of name. Yeah. You're like, what? Who?
Not quite that bad. I'm working on it.
At least Wealth Advisors is in there. I hope you provide wealth advisory.
Oh, yeah. That's wealth we have for you.
Yes.
There we go. There we go. You know,
it's like Coach Dan Gordon. You have no idea what he does. You can't tell he's a coach, right?
He's a badass and not a D.
Yes. He's muted, though, so it's even better because now he can't say nothing. Yes.
So, Ernesto, I have a quick question.
Go for it.
Believe it or not, Joe.
No, what a surprise.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier it's your job to graduate clients to be self-sufficient, and you're not going to be a parasite like everybody else. That's music to my ears because everybody else, it's like, well, we got a plan for you. Yeah, you got a plan that's going to put yourself in a country club for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest problem a lot of companies have, right, is I fear that if I give you everything, right, and put it in place, then you won't need me and I'll be left to go find another customer. And I'm going to tell you, I've got customers since I branched out on my own that I still have because I give them everything. The biggest thing that companies have an issue with is execution.
Correct.
Right. And so if you're the person that can outline the process, they still need you to help them get it done.
Make it happen.
Yeah. And again, you're the go-to person where, you know, I have clients that tell other vendors, well, you need to go and pitch your thing to Joe because we won't buy anything unless he tells us. Right. And that comes from what? Consistently giving them everything, trust. Treating it like it's my business and going forward. When I come back and I'm like, we need to go fire this person, right? We need to hire this. Now their answer is the ones that Joe said to hire before, those people do better. So now Joe has to help hire. Anytime we have Joe on the schedule, fill him with people to interview. Yeah.
And you know, just to touch on that, like when you got started back in the beginning, you know, maybe you had 3, 5, 10 clients. And, you know, you mapped out the journey, you built those acquisition relationships, you started getting organized with your daily, your weekly processes. That fourth step invites the idea of building a team. I think some ridiculous stat, like 90% of small businesses today are solopreneur-based businesses. But staying as a solopreneur actually prevents you from doing more of the fun stuff, which is serving clients and making a big impact in the world. Like people like want to be right about being overwhelmed and wearing all the hats and like that. That's why they like don't ever build a team. It's a little backwards, but building a team is what is actually going to free you up and give you the freedom that we're all saying we're chasing, but aren't actually doing it. You know, I don't know why. Everyone has a different reason for why they're not building a team or building the systems to scale. But it's this paradox that, you know, we become entrepreneurs, then build a prison for ourselves. And we don't actually want to escape it, because if we did, we would ask these questions like, how can we build a system? How can we build a team? How can we serve more people? The woman or the person who you said was asking, like, how do we let go of this? Like, ask yourself, like, do you want to keep doing your admin work, or do you want to serve clients?
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Yeah. First of all, my apologies showing up late. I have my team working on an excuse. I'm hoping to have that to you by the end of the show.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Second,
drop it in the chat.
I will. Yes, it's going to be good. Trust me. These guys are great.
Yes.
I am not a solo. What is the biggest pushback that you get from people that you pitch or that are interested in working with you, and how do you break that down? Like, what's your, not really comeback, but how do you deconstruct that resistance?
The objection?
Yes.
How do I face the objections?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the objection comes either I don't have time or I don't have the money.
Yeah.
And so you say, I don't have the time. They say, I don't have the time. And it's like, great. How many clients do you serve? 10. Let's just make up the number.
Yeah.
It's like, great. So what happens when you're serving 20 clients? Will you have the time to serve 20 clients? And you kind of catch them in their own logic. They don't really have a response.
Yeah.
And at some point, I just ask, I choose, like, I don't want to work with this person because like, they're not prioritized. Like, I go back in the beginning of the show. I don't know if you were on, but I was saying how, like, this is a war with ourselves. It's not really a war between you and the client. And when I think about, like, the war with ourselves, if I'm in front of someone who, like, is saying they don't have the time or they don't have the money, like, they probably just don't value the idea of continuously improving your business, or they don't value the same thing that I value. And so it just was never going to work. So I go back to my own values and say, do I really want to work with this person?
That's a great response, because a lot of people that I talk to, the first thing that they want to talk about are how to overcome objections. And I really love what you said. It comes down to your individual values, our individual values, what we value, rather than just trying to convince somebody of something. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And business systems, fractional COO, tech implementation, it's not a cheap service. It's not cheap, because it's a very detail-oriented process. It's like getting surgery. You're not going to get, like, an ice on your ankle. Like, it's not light PT work. Like, this is like open heart surgery, and we are rebuilding an organism. But if the person is not ready, like, I don't have the money, this is where I think in sales they say, well, if they don't want the primary product, you downsell them.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur can have the presence to listen and understand that, and create a product that doesn't match with their current budgetary restriction or consideration, and say, hey, like, fine, you're not ready to spend $15,000, spend $1,000, but, like, take action.
Yeah.
Because if you're not gonna, you don't want to go too cheap, because then the person's not going to value it either, and they're not going to realize the gain from your product. So, just be ready, be prepared. Go again back to the beginning. Be prepared to handle every situation, and present what's available. And if the person's still not ready, then we all know it's never
right. Yeah.
I'll also throw out there too, you have to be conscious of the words you use when you provide objections. Okay, so, like, if I always tell somebody I don't have time, or I go, that's too expensive, when a prospect hits you with that, your brain is wired to go, you can't tell them that's not the real reason, because that's the one you used to get out of it last time. Right? And your brain literally will fight you on it when they go, well, that's too expensive. You're like, I know, just like the last guy that called you and told you to buy something. Right? And so you have to be aware of what you use so that your brain can't do what it does, which is compare and then say, hey, don't be, incongruent. We want you to accept it from the last guy. And so again, that's just my 2 cents, is throw it out there, because if I get real creative with my actual excuses if I have to
Handling.
give it. Yeah, it's either the word no, and that's what I said was no. And if you push, then I'll give you something that I wouldn't hear anybody else do it. Right? It was definitely because of the unicorn that had stole the pineapple from the tree, right? Otherwise, I would have taken this project, and no one's ever going to tell me that, so I'm golden. But yeah, so
it's interesting that you say that, Joe. A lot changed for me when I stopped saying, "Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was really bad," and I started saying, "I apologize for wasting your time and not making you a priority." And first of all, the people I would say that to would be like really shocked, like, "Whoa, that's a lot of truth right there."
right.
And when I started doing that, just like you said, I became very truthful with the people who were wasting my time. Like, hey, come on, it's Los Angeles, it's traffic. You just didn't
No
leave
matter
early enough,
when.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you knew I was going to give you 10 grand by being here on time, what would you have done differently?
Right.
Been there.
Yeah. No, you would have found a way to make sure you were early.
Yeah.
But you didn't bother to do that because you didn't place that value on my time that was there. So, Ernesto, besides going to the $1 Million Machine, where would you like people to find you? And you stayed on with the internet this whole time. So he's in Florida fighting storms and flickering in and out kind of stuff. So
it's divine intervention.
Yes, absolutely. You're welcome. Oh, wait, yeah. So
I think people can come find me on LinkedIn. I like to write, trail of thoughts and how business systems can impact their lives. Shoot me a DM on there. And on Instagram, I share some videos of my personal life, baking, CrossFit, excursions. I kind of weave those like personal stories into the work that I do. So yeah, you can check me out on those 2 platforms.
you almost had me because I thought you were saying bacon, but then you said baking, and I was like, never mind. The bake part you had, and then you blew it at the end.
The bake part.
Yes. So fantastic, Bob. Any questions? I didn't even preface about how amazing you are at questions. See how I didn't do that this time? Yes.
My biggest question is, okay, so we have this 5-step process, right? Is there any one of those pieces that is more important than the other?
Yes.
Which one?
The first, these processes, in my opinion, are sequential.
Okay.
The first one of identifying and solidifying that customer journey is the most important. Because put yourself in a situation. You're a brand new entrepreneur and you message the 500 people in your network telling them that you're a financial advisor. And now you have 300 leads like calling you. Yes, good problems, but maybe you're excited and you say yes to all of them. You're going to deliver a crap service. Your reputation's going to, go down to negative. Yeah. And so, the first thing to get absolutely clear, it's like, hey, what is the product? Like, the product is 5 sessions. Or the product is, a 1-day workshop. Or the product is this. Like, getting absolute clarity on the product can create the clarity on how much throughput you could have, how much volume you could put through that product. And so that's where the acquisition part comes into play. And then because once you have a lot of traction, you're like, okay, I actually have a viable business here. Let's look at this weekly, monthly, quarterly. Now let's bring in some people to help manage the team. And the last part, the highest part of this pyramid is what I call the actualization. When you think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we reach the highest point of actualization when we are like so congruent with our purpose, with with the thing that we are out to achieve. And so when you have these 4 elements into play, you're serving clients, you're bringing in new clients, you're creating jobs, everyone's feeling in flow, like you are feeling at your highest purpose through your organization. And the last question, I kept saying to the people, like, ask yourself, what is that purpose you want to live into today? And when you're so aware that the purpose is I want to serve clients, I want to impact people, I want to like have free time with my family, and all those other objections you're having about systems being complicated, like that goes away because you're doing what you need to do to be with your family, to make an impact, to change the world. And that becomes the driving force for everything that we discussed today.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. I like the word that you use, sequential. I think a lot of times we come up with something and we don't realize how important the sequence really is. And we take things out of sequence and then we wonder why it falls flat. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you for
I do think it's great that the process guy said define the process first, right? Because if you sell too fast, you're gonna have crap, right? So as the sales guy, you're like, you don't even need a process unless you can sell, right? If you could do that, right? Because I see that a lot, and I it's one of those things where Ernesto and I would be sitting in a room together playing off of each other's strengths, because again, you could sit down and map out my total, here's my product, this is what I do, I defined it, it's great, it's gonna be this is how I'm gonna execute this is how I'm gonna get the people out there and do it, and then realize you have 0 sales at the end because what you defined was only important to you.
Yeah.
Right. And
thank you for bringing that up, because I literally 2 days ago wrote the paradox of building. Like, the more time you build, the less time you build, because I was a perfectionist with my product, but I didn't have sales the first year and a half. And it is this duality. There's a duality in business. Think of the yin and the yang, one side being expansion, being sales, being opportunities, and then the other side, efficiency. So it's kind of like this dance that it's this back and forth between these two energies in your business. Typically, there's an imbalance. The imbalance is what creates the risk for a business. Too much sales or too much product, it breaks down. But that's why you got to have the harmony between the two. You got to have a room with Joe and Ernesto going back and forth.
Exactly. And again, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. Like, again, this show is a perfect example of where you would go to find information that is opposite of what you traditionally think. No one needs to come here and say, you know what, tell me what I already know. Right?
Correct.
It doesn't benefit us. It's when we challenge what people typically think and go back, that's when you go, oh, that's right. And I'm completely in agreement that the systemization is crucial to your success. It absolutely is, once you know you have a product that people want, right?
Correct.
And so, because I can throttle back sales at any point, but can you throttle them forward? Right? That's the issue. Like, I will tell you that anytime I coach and I go through things, I have people go, can't you just sell my stuff for me? And I'm like, what? No. And I go, you just believe I believe more than you in whatever you're trying to sell. And I'm like, for me, the book that got my head out of, the orifice of choice at the time was the Who Not How.
Yep. Great book.
Yeah. Who Not How was, let me go find someone. So let's go sit in a room with an Ernesto who loves to go through and build out all the systems and procedures, where, to me, would I lose my mind? Because it's very rare to find that sales guy and that system guy in the same person. And the reason it's rare is that because they conflict. So you have multiple personality disorder going on with that one individual, and you need to find the person that's right to balance that. And so like Dan and I both have the same person as a virtual assistant. I mean, he may not have her still, I don't know, right? But I've already told her, hey, talk to Bob. because, you know, she can handle things because it's clerical. It's clerical. It's admin. It's the same thing. She shoots me one. Hey, I'm about to go take on this, this, and this. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds almost salesy. You better be careful. Right. And so she's like, can you give me this? I'm like, well, that's better now. If you go ask Joe, right, how do I sell this or how do I put this in play? Right. I'm like, oh, that's better. You're staying in that lane. But, you know, that kind of stuff, because I know how rare it is to find the person that can do both.
Yep.
And the person that can do both is so mentally torn with themselves that, like, I'll tell you, you got to pick a lane. Right? Not a lane, the lady, a lane, right? That lane down the highway, right? Either jump in the fast lane for sales, right? Or stay in the slow lane and get your systems built, right?
The funny thing is, it's not even just two, you know, you said multiple personality disorders. It's not just sales or systems. It's sales, systems, storytelling, product development, finance, you know, IT, like, it's so many things. And you have to pick, you know, your one lane, the one of the 15 lanes that are involved with building a company. And you ruthlessly, mercilessly stay in that lane and build whatever it is that you need, system, a team, whatever, around you to handle everything else.
Yeah. If you can build a software that can do the job, then more power to you.
Build the software.
Right. Yeah. Take the software tool and make it happen for you. So, but perfect. Okay, Ernesto, I've taken up enough of your day, and I'm going to allow the storm to now return to Florida.
To my life.
That I've held it apart this whole time. Yes. My Harry Potter wand I've got. Yes. All you muggles. But so I want to say thanks so much. VIPs, thanks for being on the screen with us and sharing with us. Everybody else who's out there that just figured out how to get to the original event, you see the numbers started jumping up. They're like, oh, I'm not watching on this page. I moved to the actual page where it was. So we're good. Guys, I want to say thanks. Go out and sell something. Thanks, everybody, for